How does any theorist sleep at night, knowing that the standard model of particle physics is off by so many orders of magnitude?
We have no idea what 95% of the universe is. It hardly seems that we understand everything.
Okay, I'm going to be honest with here, but we're in the strange situation that it seems like every other year there's a new unexplained signal.
Maybe we're just going to have to scratch our heads and start all over again.
Einstein doesn't explain dark energy, and so far, neither has anyone else.
We are absolutely still lacking great ideas.
So it is crying out for some new breakthrough, new thinking.
If anybody cracks those challenges, I think many of us view that we will really leapfrog to the next level of understanding.
As requested from scientists all over the world, this video contains new thoughts and ideas about quantum mechanics, matter, dark energy, and reality.
The process of scientific discovery sometimes makes progress through sheer hard work. And sometimes it needs someone to take an inspired alternative view. Observations are critical. The ideas of dark matter and dark energy come courtesy of people watching stars.
But to understand that data, to give it some interpretation, to give it an idea, could come from one person. That could be the next Einstein.
But just as Einstein, musing on his train, managed to take all the known science and see it from a different, more useful angle, someone needs to pull off a similar trick and come up with an even better idea.
Our visible universe is made of particles already found by science. And these particles are present in the standard model of particle physics. But many scientists believe that we are living in symmetry with a parallel universe made of dark matter and dark energy, and that this invisible universe is made from a new set of ghostly particles yet to be discovered by science. And these new particles are close related by being twin particles to the particles of the standard model, and it's in the theories of supersymmetry and mirror matter. But let's start by seeing the symmetry in brane theory when reality becomes a duality of two universes.
I think the ordinary conception of reality we now know is completely wrong. According to brane theory, there have to be at least two universes. There's one three-dimensional world, let's say the one we live in, and there's a parallel one next door to it. The distance between these worlds is very, very tiny. It's much smaller than the size of an atomic nucleus. So when we say they're parallel worlds, for everyday purposes, it's as if they're really on top of each other.
Our three-dimensional world can be viewed as a membrane-like surface embedded in space with an extra fourth spatial dimension. The two brane worlds, ours and the one opposite, are separated by a much tinier distance, about a trillionth of an inch. Although we can't touch, feel, or see any matter on the other brane, we can nevertheless sense its existence because we can feel its gravity.
And if we also take a look on one of the leading theories about gravity and how it works, we also find a symmetry and a duality.
Lisa's math suggested that gravity might be so weak because the closed-loop strings that carry this force, gravitons, are being pulled away from our brane and concentrated instead in a parallel universe that's separated from us by a fourth dimension.
You can imagine that these two buildings behind me represent two different branes. And we maybe are living only in that building or that brane. If gravity is concentrated at the other building, we might only get a tail end of gravity. It might be that that could explain why gravity is so weak for us.
Lisa Randall's idea of a warped fourth dimension separating us from a parallel universe has set the world of physics alight.
And if we also look at matter itself, it's also in a symmetry and a duality with a mirror particle that matter works the best, as it fixes a lot of problems in physics. And it's in the theories like supersymmetry and mirror matter. And if we add Louis de Broglie's pilot wave theory, matter and reality behaves logically in the double slit experiment.
Basically, everything that happens with ordinary matter can in principle happen with mirror matter.
Mirror matter particles would be stable and completely invisible to us, just like dark matter. So, if they exist, Robert and his colleagues think they could be dark matter. But their existence would also have much larger implications. It would mean that everything in our universe is mirrored in a realm we can't see. Mirror planets, stars, and galaxies may occupy the same space as regular matter inside our universe. But these mirror structures would be invisible to us. They would pass right through the matter that we know.
What's going on in this hidden world?
And if all visible matter particles also have dark invisible partners in the extra dimension that also are in a wave-like state, then these particles could be acting as pilot waves for their partners, the visible matter particles. Somewhat like the physicist Louis de Broglie's pilot wave theory.
To understand how the universe works, we need to unlock why the quantum world is so different from the world we know. The mystery of quantum mechanics is, how can things like electrons sometimes behave like particles and sometimes behave like waves? Perhaps this is the answer. They are particles and waves.
Louis de Broglie's original idea is that an electron is both a wave and a particle all the time. It's not the case that, well, sometimes it's a particle, sometimes it's a wave. There is a wave guiding a particle at all times. And de Broglie called this a pilot wave.
Pilot wave theory treats this wave as a real physical object. There is a crucial difference between the waves we know and the pilot wave. According to the theory, pilot waves exist in hidden dimensions of space beyond the three we know. If true, this means that quantum objects obey the same rules as large objects. They are part of the real world, and that reality really exists.
So it could be that these supersymmetric or mirror matter pilot waves, or to use the better term, ghost waves, that they are the missing dark matter particles. And this duality of both matter and reality is also what Schrödinger's equation is a reflection and a validation of. That particles and their particle waves are two sides of the same thing, a mirror or symmetric image of itself, and therefore can't be at two places at the same time, both inside the visible dimension and also at the same time inside the fourth spirit dimension.
All of reality is described by quantum mechanics, and the central equation of quantum mechanics is Schrödinger's equation.
One of my favorite ends to parallel universes is just shining a laser pointer. Because when the light beam hits the glass here, it both goes through and bounces back. And that's really weird if you think about the fact that light is really made out of little particles, photons. Because how does a photon know when it hits the glass whether it's supposed to bounce or go through?
According to Schrödinger's equation, even a single photon from Max's laser pointer will both go through the glass and reflect off of it.
And here's the kicker. If light particles can be in two places at once, well, I'm made of particles. So if my particles can be in two places at once, so can I.
People try to think, it can't be quantum mechanics applies to the universe. Nonsense. Anyone who looks at this Schrödinger equation is forced to conclude that it applies to all of reality, not just to atoms, but to buildings, to glass, to the whole universe.
It sounds like total nonsense that something could be in two places at once, but that's both what the Schrödinger equation predicts, and that's also something we can demonstrate with experiments in the lab. So as much as some of my colleagues hate it, this is the way the universe works, and my job as a scientist isn't to tell the universe how to behave according to my aesthetic preconceptions. My job as a scientist is to figure out what the universe is doing and suck it up.
And that our bodies can be two places at the same time is also the exact same thing that we hear from all the people with near-death experiences.
So we would take this huge pen of horses, little by little, and unsaddle them. Well, two of them, I started to wiggle between the two. I turned around and I was kind of pushing myself against the stirrups to see if I could get up next to their heads. And all of a sudden, I just kind of popped out of my body. And I was standing about 15 feet away, watching myself trying to get in between the horses. When I turned, my arm went into the stirrup and I started to drag on one of the horses, and that made him panic. The body, the Leslie body, was screaming in pain, and I didn't feel anything but serenity and peace, and this is the way it is, He started kicking at me, and he hit me with his head into the corner of the hay barn, which crushed my skull, and I watched my body drop. And I remember thinking, just for a split second, I wonder if everyone leaves their body like this, because I knew I was dead. And then the next thing I thought was, this is it? This is what everyone's so afraid of? I'm still here. I'm still thinking. And a couple of the guests started to try to do CPR on me. And at that point, Tucson just began to fade. It just was like getting softer and softer. It was like foggy. It just got very faint. I knew I was not on Earth, and I knew I was dead. The reality of it is so ultra real that there's never a doubt in your mind that you think it's a hallucination or, a dream or anything like that. And there were two people on either side of me. And the woman sitting on my right, she said, you have a choice to make. You can stay up here or you can go back to Earth. I didn't know what to do. If I decided right then, I probably would have stayed. I just felt so good. It tipped. It just felt right to come back. All of a sudden, it was like I could feel myself being squashed again. I felt like I was being squashed into a sausage casing. And then all of a sudden, I just go, and I sit up. And they all went, whoa. They took me to the hospital, and for the first couple weeks, I was in and out of the ICU. The odd thing was, even though I had no memory of who I was, I remembered every second of my near-death experience. It's pretty wild.
This means you have two bodies. One inside the visible dimension, which is made of normal matter particles that are in a conscious state. And then you have a spirit or soul body inside the fourth spirit dimension, which is made of energy ghost waves that are in an unconscious state. Not to be confused with the laws of consciousness. And this is how the two basic states of consciousness enter into physics. And your mind can slide in and out between these two states and bodies, all depending on what state is needed for your activity. And your spirit body's ghost waves extend into the surrounding space beyond the borders of the visible matter body. And it is with these ghost waves that mediums, psychic and healers can connect with their own ghost waves by entanglement inside the fourth spirit dimension to get their information and feelings, both from living people and from spirits.
How I see spirit is a little bit different. I see shadows and silhouettes, but more importantly, I feel the soul's bond and relationship that you shared with them. I will also feel the way that they departed. They will also make me feel how you feel. So I don't read...
Just overwhelming.
It is.
And it's the same thing with healers when they use their healing abilities.
Det noe sånn strøm der, tror jeg.
Der kjenner du.
Ja, det som jeg ikke kjent for nå. Ja. Det noe sånn strøm der, tror jeg.
Der kjenner du.
Ja, det som jeg ikke kjent for nå. Ja. Oi. Det var veldig rart.
Ja. Men sånn, ja.
We all use our invisible ghost waves on a daily basis to help us read and sense the feelings of the people around us and our surroundings, because the ghost waves are also our sixth sense.
Sixth sense research, long on the fringes of science, is moving ever closer to the mainstream.
There is more sixth sense stuff around than we are maybe willing to acknowledge, because we are processing much more information on a continuous basis than we are aware of.
We're at the point where we can show that we have anomalous findings. And what do we mean by anomalous? It means it doesn't fit into the current structure of how we conceptualize physical reality.
It's clearly physical, it's tied to small amounts of energy, and it tells us that there's a connection between us and our world around us that we haven't previously fathomed.
We're looking at the edge of what's known. I think we can say with high confidence that in the realm of psychic phenomena, something interesting is happening.
But how might it actually work?
What I'm suggesting is that our minds work through extended fields called morphic fields, which organize the bodies of animals and plants and organize the activities of brains and minds that stretch out far beyond our heads into the world around us, linking us to other people and to our environment.
Rupert believes that morphic fields are what allow birds to fly in perfect formation, what guide the mass migrations of herd animals. And he also believes they are the reason we get that uncanny feeling when someone stares at us.
In 2016, the scientist Dean Radin proved that humans can collapse the wave function in the double slit experiment. And he concluded that the people who are the most able to do this are people who are able to control their state of mind through meditation. And if you find a symmetry and a duality of two universes in the theories of both matter, gravity, and reality, then you must also try to explain experiments like the double-slit experiment with a symmetry of two universes and a pair of twin particles in duality.
And maybe a logical explanation for the double-slit experiment could be like this. When there's no observer, the electrons are surfing along on their invisible ghost waves, which interfere when they go through the double slit, which then guides the particles down to the backwall detector, creating the interference pattern,
which only is a reflection of the waves guiding the particles.
But when the observer's consciousness and invisible ghost waves destructively interfere with the electron's invisible ghost waves, the wave function collapses, and hereby freeing the electrons to travel straight through the slits and down to the backwall detector. And the very fact that only a wave can cancel out another wave, and hereby collapse and suppress the wave function, is also the confirmation that waves are coming from the inside of the observer's mind and being.
So where do all the scientists believe that all the dark matter in the universe is coming from?
We believe that this dark matter must exist, because if we look at galaxies, if we look at the universe around us today, there has to be some sort of unseen dark stuff. And we think that stuff must have been liberated from the particles that we can see. We think that stuff must have been liberated from the particles that we can see.
And it is these ghost waves that the scientists are trying to find, as they also are believed to be the dark energy that drives the galaxies apart with increasing speed, as more and more liberated and non-liberated ghost waves are gathered inside the fourth spirit dimension. And unless these ghost waves are inaccessible hidden inside the parallel universe, it will only be a matter of time before the scientists will find them and prove that the dark universe is the spirit world, hiding inside the fourth spirit dimension. And if dark energy is the energy of life inside the spirit dimension, this means that Einstein's cosmological constant, Lambda, which we now know fits the known state of the universe, is really life in the universe. And it began when the universe was around 7.5 billion years old.
was younger, I had a febrile seizure and I had choked on something.
You died and then
I
came back? How do you connect? Because I keep getting a pain on the left side of my brain, the left side of the front of my head. It's so strong right now. This is crazy.
My stepfather had a stroke on the left side of his brain and had a portion of his brain taken out.
Watch, there's nothing there.
So let me explain this to you.
Okay.
This is how fast or slow your brain works.
Okay.
The little bit of yellow
Right.
is high activity.
Okay.
And blue is low activity.
Okay.
When you're channeling, your brain's just a little bit sleepier. People meditate to get that. And you're obviously in a different state. So
Yeah.
you're really tuned into something. The big thing we discovered is when she's channeling, energy in her brain drops, which means her own thoughts are sort of tuning out so she can tune in to the spiritual world.
So there is a definite difference in my brain when I'm channeling.
Completely different. Your brain is obviously doing something special.
Thank you. So my purpose and my wish for the both of you is that you receive the gift of healing. The other thing is I have no thought right now. And that happened way too fast. That just means that I raised my vibration too quickly and I got to the other side too quickly. Because what happens is as I give my speech, I raise my vibration and your loved ones start to clear up my own personal thoughts, feelings, and emotions.
Consider the phenomenon of quantum non-locality. When two tiny particles instantly share information across vast distances. Zeilinger's lab tests this instant information sharing by linking two atoms together so they both vibrate at the same speed. Then the atoms are separated by 5 miles. Now, when one atom is hit with a small charge, it instantly changes the vibration speed of both atoms. The entangled atoms change state faster than the time it takes a laser beam to cross town, faster than the speed of light.
So why hasn't science already seen this amazing possibility that the spirit dimension is real and already made a well-known theory about it?
Sometimes in research you can know too much, and it's the youngster who's ignorant or somebody coming in from outside that says, you know, the emperor has no clothes on, but actually is telling the truth, can see the truth.
In effect, we have always known that reality was more than one universe, but physicists would not believe their own equations.
We physicists are conservative revolutionaries in the sense that we have to be open to all sorts of crazy, bizarre phenomena. Who would have thought that there's something called radioactivity? Who would have thought that we would have quantum forces? So we have to be open to these things.
So when you have shocking questions, it takes sometimes shocking ideas and answers to try to put your arms around this.
The interesting message here is that we have quantum physics now around for nearly 100 years, and we are still working at the foundations. And that tells me that when we found it, it will be an absolute revelation. It will be something different from what we have been thinking.
Nothing is too wonderful to be true, if it be consistent with the laws of nature.